Hey everyone, welcome to my live broadcast. For those of you that joined me on Monday and I discussed with you the projects that we'd be doing today, they did change a little bit and I will explain why. But I do see people starting to join me on Instagram. So I do have my phone placed right here, but I also have my computer screen posting live to YouTube and Facebook as well. So if I'm looking two different ways, that's why I do have two different screens here. So hi everybody joining on Instagram. I'm really excited for today's topic because for those of you that watch my videos and have joined my lives, you know I get really excited about trends and different things that you can do at your business with heat transfer vinyl and heat transfers in general that can allow you to build profit opportunity by looking at these trends and also incorporating them into some of the designs and garments and accessories that you're selling as well. So thanks everyone for joining in on YouTube and Facebook. I see some comments coming from Facebook, from Craig, Marianne, Ruthie. Hi everyone and happy Friday. We'll go ahead and dive into today's topic because I do have some really exciting applications for you. So we'll review those real quick. We're going to be doing a 2-color ultra weed mixed media with Flock 2. So we're going to be using 2 of the popular colors from Ultra Weed, that being greenery and Bahama Blue. Sometimes I get Bahama Blue and mint mixed up, but this is the Bahama Blue. And then we're going to pair that with the yellow Flock 2. So adding dimension to graphic tees is very, very popular. It kind of brings in some of the retro type of finishes that we saw anywhere from 1970s and 80s and 90s that are starting to be reinvented and shown in a unique way on graphic tees. So that's what we're going to be utilizing for that. And then, of course, the new sublimation patterns we'll also be working with again today. So if you join me on Monday, we heat printed koozies using our sublimation patterns. And this is now available through stalls.com. So if you missed that on Monday, that is housed on our YouTube channel and also in the video section of our Facebook page. So if you want to see this in action and heat printing on koozies with our sublimation patterns, you can check those out there. However, we're going to move beyond accessories and we're actually going to print some apparel with those sublimation patterns on a sublimation tee for youth. And then we're going to be pairing that with foil and adhesive. All right, so for those of you that love those metallic trends on graphic tees or any of those foil finishes that have that bright mirror-like look, that's exactly what this is going to help you achieve, all right? So I already have my Ultra Weed and Flock 2 cut out, so we're gonna start out by weeding that, but before we do that, I actually wanna load in my CAD cut adhesive and start cutting that design that we're going to be pairing over top of the sublimation transfer. So I'm just going to load that on my cutting mat real quick. Make sure that I am on the iron-on setting on the dial for my Cricut. And then I have Cricut up on my screen here. Sorry for those of you on Instagram, you can't see this part, but I will share this with you guys so you can kind of see what I'm working with. So this is the graphic that we're going to be pairing over top of the sublimation. I won't spend too much time here so that you guys on Instagram don't get too lost. But it's just repeating text in a really cute retro font, which you guys will see here shortly. All right, so I'm going to size this down to, let's do 6.5 in width since we are working with a youth garment here, a youth small actually. All right, and at this point, CAD cut adhesive, of course, it is a heat transfer vinyl that acts like a glue for foil and fabric to adhere to. So the same concepts follow for this on, heat transfer vinyl for the adhesive. So it's going to work the same way. We have to mirror our design and then we will weed and cut all of that out. So I'm just going to hit continue and make sure that my Cricut is all connected for me here. And that's just recognizing the device for me. And then all I have to do is click go. All right, so of course, if you are on IGTV, you cannot see the screen for that. But if you guys want to revisit that and just kind of see a little bit about Design Space and how we're working with designs in there, then you can visit that on the Facebook page. All right, so hi, everybody commenting in. Thanks so much for joining. All right, South Carolina, we have people from Sweden. All right, Minneapolis. Hi, Patrice. Glad you were able to make it this morning. All right, so all the designs that I am working with today, these were all sourced from cadworkslive.com. So cadworks live is a free online artwork software. I use it for all of my designing because I'm not extremely graphic design savvy. So I have to use, you know, my templates and clip art from that, you know, that website so that I can easily create graphics. So this is a new template that's just been added. And right now we are weeding the flock 2 here. And flock 2, whenever I cut this out on the Cricut, what I do is turn it on to the iron-on plus setting. And I always do a test cut because my blade is starting to get to that point where the force needs to be increased every now and again because I've been cutting so many different materials like reflectives and glitters that have some more wear and tear on the blade than your standard heat transfer vinyl. So I can't stress enough, before you start cutting out your designs, make sure you're doing a test cut so that you're not wasting a bunch of material and the design isn't actually cutting. If you're anything like me and that has happened to you, you probably learned the hard way. But in Cricut Design Space, they have a little shapes in there that you can utilize, triangles, squares, circles, that won't take up too much of your material to test out. And it allows you to, you know, just test your force, how far down your blade is going into your material, and not waste a bunch of material in the process. All right, so flock, it has a little bit of tackiness to the carrier, not a ton, because it's actually kind of fuzzy from the velvety like finish that it offers, but it can hold some decent amount of detail. All right, so let me unshare my screen there. So I was able to get a decent amount of detail in the script font there, as you can see. So definitely don't hold back with flock, but also just be careful with the amount of detail that you are using in the product, because you don't want to get into a situation where it's just too hard to weed and then you're spending way too much time in that process and it just becomes too time consuming and you don't want to use it a bunch. All right, so now I am weeding the Ultra Weed. And this material weeds very, very easily. So that's the one thing that people really love about the product, is that it doesn't tear a lot whenever you're weeding it. And it can hold a lot of detail. So it does have a bit of a tacky carrier. It's not extremely tacky to the point where it wants to rip the product a lot when you're weeding it away. But it's definitely tacky enough to hold a decent amount of detail. I think I may have just messed up my design, but we'll see. I may be able to push it right back down. So that's the other advantage of working with a material that has a tacky carrier, is that, you know, you can push an element of the design that may have accidentally came up. So that just happened to me with the C here. But all I have to do is just put that right back down into the spot where the cut lines are, kind of like just piecing it together like the template. And then it will stay for me for the application. So that's nice. So that's one of the advantages of working with a material that has the tacky carrier. And then just when tip for weeding, whenever you are working with a text or font that has a lot of open cavities, you kind of have to just go into those cavities to make that weeding process a lot simpler. All right, so originally I started on this side and it was getting caught and it was breaking, but now that I'm like weeding into the open cavities, it's saving me a lot more time. Less start and stop points if you do it that way. All right, so at this point, so you can see, I'm going to show you this again one more time up close. You can see where the C here lifted up as I was weeding. So all I have to do is just find that original cut line and put that right back in place. So that's what I'm going to spend some time to do here so that my design lines up accurately. And it's really easy to do. You just lift it up with your weeding tool a little bit, and then it lets you put it in place. And then that tacky carrier just lets it go right back where it was supposed to be. And now whenever I go to line this up, it won't be an issue. All right, so custom designs on Instagram, television, just asked, does this material not weed well? Actually, it does weed very well. So again, Ultra Weed is a newer product that we just launched, and that's why people like working with it. However, there are definitely some tricks when it comes to weeding. So if you're working with text that has a lot of open cavities, you want to make sure you're weeding into those open cavities. And honestly, it doesn't look like my cut lines cut too well, and that's why I'm having an issue with it today. All this talk about testing your force with your blade and making sure you're getting an accurate cut before you send your design, and now I'm having issues. So I'm just carefully going along those cut lines to make sure that they're not picking up. And this may need to be cut again, so we will see. Yeah. So I'm just going to cut this color again. I don't think it's getting a good weed because I don't think the force was strong enough. Again, as I mentioned earlier, my blade has been having some trouble on thinner products because I've been cutting a lot of thicker products. And that's why a lot of times people will recommend that you dedicate a blade to some of those thicker products that have a lot more wear and tear on your designs, such as glitters and reflectives. And this is the exact reason why, because whenever you use that same blade to cut some of these thinner products, then it makes the weeding process a lot harder because it didn't get a direct cut. So you'll see where these pieces are lifting up and causing me issue, but honestly, I think that we can make it. We can make it work. We'll see. This really is a cool design and a great product to work with, so I want to show you it. We're almost there. We're just gonna roll with it. Looks like it didn't cut like in this entire section. Like maybe there was an issue with the cutting mat even. So many variables at this point. Because it cut in some places and then others it didn't cut as well. Sometimes if there's like lint or something on your cutting mat, which you can get off with a lint roller, or they offer like spray and cleaner for them as well. That can cause a cutting issue in certain areas as well. All right. So I promise that this product is amazing to work with. We've just been testing and talking about Ultra Weed nonstop lately and its ease of use. So honestly, this was user error on my end. The cutting just didn't do as good, and I fully believe it was because of the force of the blade. And since I've been working with so many different heat transfer vinyls, I think I just need a new blade, or there was something on the cutting mat that didn't cause, or that caused the cut lines to not cut cleanly. So we'll see what happens with the adhesive as well. But again, a good way to avoid that, learn from my expense at this, and you know, my error, and always keep an extra blade on hand. All right, so I do see some questions commenting in Instagram. Looks like we have some questions as well. All right, so I always do a double cut, helps me depend on the condition of the blade. Yeah, so double cut is another great feature, especially if you're working with a cutter that offers that, but I'm not sure if the Cricut or any of the desktop cutters do. So I'm not sure about that, but if you're working with the Graphtec C6000 or 7000, or even the Roland GS24, those have an overcut feature or a double cut feature. So those always really help for fine detail. But this isn't even like a super detailed design. I just think it's my blade or something that was on the mat that caused that to happen. And Gandhi asks, would you recommend Graphtec over Cameo? Is it a big of a difference production-wise? So yeah, so if you guys are working with desktop cutters now and you're looking for an upgrade, definitely the Graphtec or the Roland, both really great cutters. They have a servo motor, so that allows you to really speed up your time spent in cutting out designs, because these cutters run on a stepper motor, and they just don't cut designs out as fast. So what I would do is check out some of the videos that Josh Ellsworth has done, cutting out designs on his Graphtec CA6000, and then watch my videos with the Silhouette or the Cricut and see like the slowness and the comparison of the two, because yeah, it's a huge difference and a huge time saver if you need to speed up your heat transfer vinyl production. All right, so comments coming in over here. Sixto says, time for a new blade, maybe. Absolutely. Deborah, this is Ultra Weed. This is not a printable heat transfer vinyl, but if you are looking for a printable heat transfer vinyl, that is something that you can source from our website. We do transfer paper and also eco-solvent heat transfer vinyl that's compatible with the eco-sol printers. All right, so let's get to some heat application, and then we'll come back and weed the adhesive a little later on. All right, so for the first application we're doing, I have just a cotton poly tank top on here. This is a District t-shirt from Sanmar, and we're just going to preheat this, release any moisture or wrinkles that are in that fabric. So whenever you are working with Ultra Weed, one of the beautiful things about the product is that it is a fast tack heat transfer vinyl, which means I can put this down and apply it for just 2 seconds. And that really helps to speed up my production when it comes to the actual application. So I'm just going to tack this for 2 seconds. And it removed my carrier for me. So that fell off the back. All right, so now we'll drop in the second piece here. Another thing, and what's great about that fast tack, is that it doesn't allow the material to shrink at all, especially whenever you're layering or registering your designs. So again, another quick fast tack of 2 seconds. That will apply that second color for me, which is greenery. And now we can go in with the flock. Now, flock is not a fast tack product. This is a true cold pill heat transfer vinyl. So this one will definitely get the full application. So this one applies for 330 degrees. for 18 seconds. So although Ultra Weed can apply as low as 260 degrees, we want to make sure we are at the setting of flock, because when you work with mixed media like this, you need to make sure that you are always at the highest temperature setting and time setting for that product. So always keep that in mind whenever you're working with mixed media, that you are following the application instructions of the product that needs the longest time and the highest temperature, right? It's not going to hurt the Ultra Weed to apply at that 330 degrees. So there's no issue here with letting that sit under the heat for that long period of time. It's not going to hurt it at all. All right, so we had the Bahama Blue and the greenery line up great, aside from some of the extra heat transfer vinyl there that was left over from that painful weeding process. But now we're just going to wait for that flock to completely cool down, and then we can go ahead and weed that. Or peel the carrier, not weed it. All right, so we can go ahead and remove the carrier now that it has cooled down. And now we have a really unique, and honestly, I love the colors and how these pair together, especially on this navy t-shirt. So again, Ultra Weed is the Bahama Blue and the greenery of the design. And then with the bright yellow there is the Flock 2. All right, so adding dimension and texture to your graphic tees is ultimately going to allow you to increase your profit opportunity whenever you are selling. So just keep that in mind whenever you are making graphic tees. It is a large market, and you can reach a broad range of customer types. It fits in several different demographics. So just keep that in mind. A lot of this repeating text graphic are really popular, and then just being able to add unique value to your brand by using heat transfer vinyl to do dimensional products and really increase the value will help you in the long run, ultimately. So for the next application, like I mentioned earlier, we are going to do sublimation. So I'm going to increase my temperature from 330 to 385 degrees. And then my time is going to increase from 20 to 40 seconds. All right, so that is our recommended time and temperature to adhere sublimation. Now it's time to weed out the adhesive, which I'm super nervous for, considering the last weeding process was not so pretty. All right, so somebody asked on Instagram television if that was Thermoflex. No, it's definitely, in my opinion, a superior product in comparison to Thermoflex. It applies at 265 degrees, and it just feels better overall. It's not as thick of a product, and it is a true matte finish, so that you don't have any issue with a glossy vinyl look that Thermoflex offers. All right, so this one's weeding just fine. This is a little bit of a thicker product than the Ultra Weed, so I'm assuming that's why it cut better for me. Thank goodness, because I did not want to weed out another design like that. Okay, so I'm just going, I couldn't see my cut lines before, that's why I didn't trim this. I didn't want to accidentally cut into the design. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that now so that I can save some of this excess material on the bottom here. Right, again, the adhesive is a glue-like heat transfer vinyl that allows you to adhere foils and fabrics too. And if you don't want to deal with the weeding process at all, you can just have us cut your designs for you by uploading them on the website. We are 70% there. All right. Painful part is over. Now we can go ahead and heat apply. I'm just double checking this to make sure I have all of the cavities weeded out. It looks like we have some really tiny detail inside the hand that needs to come out. So I'm just going to weed out those little pieces real quick. All right, there we go. So again, earlier I mentioned the brand of the t-shirts. So real quick, we always talk about polyesters and how they are not made the same. So you want to be cautious whenever you are selecting the type of polyester garment that you are going to be using for sublimation. So when you work with sublimation, we all know it applies at a really high temperature. So 385 degrees is definitely way too high for a lot of those heat sensitive polyesters. So you always want to make sure that you are sourcing a garment that was specifically manufactured to withstand that really high heat. So Sublavie is a really great brand for that. It's one of the brands under the LAT Apparel umbrella, and it doesn't scorch or anything. So that's why I always go with Sublavie when it comes to their blank garments, because they just do it trendy. They have the V-neck styles, your basic crew neck styles like this one. And what I did for this, I wanted to find a unique way to do the sublimation pattern on a t-shirt without getting too intricate and having to cut it a bunch or try to load this on my cutting mat and actually cut out a design. So what I did is I'm going to utilize this to do like a stripe pattern across the chest, and then we'll apply the adhesive and foil on top of that. So I went ahead and trimmed out the edges of this transfer because I wanted to make sure it didn't apply onto the sleeves, so that it looks like it's a consistent piece that was actually built into the garment before it was heat applied with the foil. So I'm just going to place this down in line with those sleeves and then heat apply that way. So this is an oversized design for the size of my platen here. So I'm going to be doing this in 2 steps. So this is going to lock down. I'm going to do that nice and slowly to make sure that I'm not shifting the sheet at all by accident, because then that can create some ghosting and ultimately create issues for the design overall. So 385 degrees, 40 seconds. That's what's going to get you the most vibrant and beautiful color throughout the design. And these come in a variety of different patterns. So earlier I showed you the leopard pattern, all of the patterns that we offer online. There's so many, and you get to choose the colors that go into them, which is a really unique way to do your sublimation. All right, so now I'm just going to apply this side, making sure that I'm not shifting the sheet at all and that I'm not getting any uneven pressure from that sleeve. So this is the tricky part about working with such a small press. This would not have to be heat applied twice if I was maybe working with an 11 by 15 or a 15 by 15. Most common is 16 by 20. So if you're working with a 16 by 20 press, even better. But because I have such a small dimension here and I wanted that design to go consistently across from seam to seam of the shirt, that's exactly why I'm doing it twice. But this would be more effective and an easier application if you're working with larger dimensions of a heat press. I will say oversized designs aren't as common. So yeah, so there is a little bit of an inconsistency there at the bottom, unfortunately, of the t-shirt. So, but you get the concept. Essentially what we're doing is just creating the seam to seam structure. So when this is actually worn, this will be under the armpit of the person wearing it, and then it's seam to seam. So you won't really see where it cuts off right here when it's being worn. Right, but now if you are going to pair heat transfer vinyl on top of this, what you need to do is make sure you're working with a product that is going to apply without any dyes migrating through. So foil, it's just its nature to kind of block that from migrating through. So that is a great product. Of course, it would show through just the adhesive, but you have to cover the adhesive with something anyway. So foil is definitely a nice dye blocker. And of course, it works perfectly because it's such a popular finish. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim out my foil off to the side here. So what we're gonna do is put this right over top of here. And make sure we're using a cover sheet so that that sublimation on the t-shirt doesn't adhere to that upper heating element. So this applies for, I have this a little bit too low, so I'm gonna move that up a little bit. This applies for just 5 seconds at a light pressure. It was a little bit too light, so I'm gonna increase that a little bit. So just 5 seconds for this application. Now we are at 380 degrees for this application because of the sublimation, but you can actually apply this as low as 300 degrees. So we'll remove that carrier, and now all we have to do is take our foil and place that right over top. Right, and I'm just going to use my cover sheet once more to make sure that that does not transfer. And this applies at a nice firm pressure. So you want it to be very heavy as you are locking that down. And this applies for a full 10 seconds. So that's the trick or the key to getting a really great application with adhesive and foil is making sure that you are using a light pressure for the adhesive and then a firm pressure for the foil. All right, so this part is a cold peel, so we will let that set. This is really, really hot right now because of that 380 degree temperature. So we wanna make sure that we are definitely letting that cool before removing the foil. But once it's applied and the two are paired together, it's a really cool overall look. And that foil has a nice high metallic shine to it. It's definitely not as durable as your standard heat transfer vinyl. This would last more like 25 to 30 washes as opposed to a heat transfer vinyl that we offer that lasts a standard 50 washes, which is technically like the life of the garment. So you're getting about half the life with foil as you would your standard heat transfer vinyl. All right, so those are the projects that I had planned today. And I actually like how this turned out aside from that bottom piece right there where it overlapped. But again, that could have easily been avoided by just using a larger heat press or a smaller shirt. All right, so I do see some comments and questions coming in. So let's go ahead and check those out before we head out for the day. So I'll start on Instagram. So can you do that on a black shirt? So whenever you are working with sublimation, you want to make sure that you are using a light or white colored shirt so that the ink shows very, very vibrantly. If you are using dark colors like heathered gray or a charcoal gray or anything darker than that, then the inks aren't really going to show up, and you're not going to be able to really tell what the graphic is saying. So whether it's 100% polyester or not, you want to still make sure that it is a light or white colored fabric. So I do not recommend using sublimation on black. So yeah, pillar, yeah. So you don't have to worry about the first half being reactivated and ghosting. Yes, so that's exactly what happened there at the bottom. And then like one piece where it's like a little bit darker on that one side. All right. So if you're going to do black polyester, yes, someone recommended using white ink. So again, even if you are doing white sublimation ink, it's still not going to show up because those fibers are adhering to, or the ink is adhering to the fibers, and it's just not bright enough. It's not opaque unless you are putting it on a white color garment. It's really hard to try to relay how this all works, but there's a lot of videos and stuff out there that kind of explain the entire process of sublimation. And what it is an ink that turns into a gas and then adheres to the fibers of the shirt. So there really is no opaque backing to it that's going to allow the white to really stand out and be opaque on a black shirt. So if you want to do black shirts, then transfer paper is a great option to achieve full color and white ink, or heat transfer vinyl, such as what we used earlier, because it has a white backer or a vinyl adhesive that lays on top of the garment instead of sinking down into the fibers of the shirt. All right, so really, again, it's a unique process, but it's really cool if you can really grasp the concept of it and how it works. All right, so Richard says, I use a Roland color cam cutter. I'd love to get a t-shirt press. Yeah, they're super easy to work with as long as you follow the instructions. You really can't go wrong with that. You can do so much with it. And Karen asked, what was the name of the t-shirt again that you suggested for sublimation? So once again, that is Sublivie. So we can share a link to that in the comments for you. And let's see. Marianne, I'm glad that you liked how it turned out. I was a little bit concerned whenever I had to do the second press to see how that was going to show up. Thank you, Cassandra. All right, so it looks like Jim says weeding is half the fun. Do you guys hate weeding or like weeding? I don't mind it because I don't have to do it a lot, but some people absolutely hate it, so they hire people to come and weed for them, or they get their kids involved to weed. All right, so awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining. It looks like I have all the comments and questions answered. It looks like I have some more on IGTV, but I am going to wrap some stuff up and then I'll revisit this right after we close out the broadcast and answer any more questions that we have there. So thank you guys once more for joining. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. I'll see you again on Monday.